Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing an Arcana Force deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck just got some amazing support out of Supreme Darkness, making Arcana Force absolutely insane. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards. So without further ado, let's go and get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of the Sun. The Sun is definitely a 3 of in the build, and this card is an awesome effect that if there's a card on the field with a coin tossing effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. And all of your Arcana Force monsters actually have coin tossing effects, and this card has 2 insane coin tossing effects. That if this card is summoned, you toss a coin, and if heads, you set a spell card from your deck that has a coin tossing effect, and if tails, destroy all cards in the spell and trap card zone, which is absolutely crazy. This card is a boss monster, it searches, it's an extender, and it's a board wipe for all the back row. This card is absolutely broken and super cool as a 3 of in the deck. We then play 3 copies of the Fiend. The Fiend is definitely a 3 of in the build because this card can actually search out your copy of Light Barrier by discarding this card to the graveyard, which is an insane ability to instantly get to our copy of Light Barrier. So we can basically choose the effects we want our Arcana Force monsters to get instead of coin tossing, which is absolutely insane and such a cool ability. So this card is definitely a 3 of to instantly get to our copy of Light Barrier. We then play 3 copies of the Hierophant. Hierophant is the best normal summon in the entire deck and absolutely insane as a 3 of. You can actually discard this card, and this turn your opponent cannot activate cards and effects when an Arcana Force monster is summoned to your field. And if this card is summoned, you actually toss a coin, and if heads, you special summon a level 4 lower Arcana Force monster from your deck with a different name from the monsters you control and in your graveyard to your side of the field. And if tails, you special an Arcana Force monster from the deck to your opponent's side of the field, which is a really interesting effect, especially with our copy of the Chaos Ruler. We then play a single copy of the Lovers. Lovers is really good as a 1-of in the build because of its heads effect, because if you get heads with this card can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of an Arcana Force monster, meaning it's super easy to summon out the world. We then play a single copy of the Emperor. Emperor is really good as a 1-of in the build because if you get the heads effect, all Arcana Force monsters you control gain 500 attack points, which is a really cool ability just to help you get a little bit of a boost so you can OTK, because your monsters can get absolutely massive in this deck now. We then play a single copy of the Empress. The Empress is a great 1-of in the build. This is actually a card you want to hand to your opponent with your copy of the Hierophant, because this card is a really interesting effect that if you get tails, each time your opponent normal summons or sets a monster, you send a card from your hand to the graveyard. So you can actually hand this card to your opponent with the Hierophant, which is why we play this card as a 1-of in the build, just in case we actually do need to hand a card to our opponent, but it's a great 1-of in the build. We then play a single copy of the World. This card is absolutely insane because it can actually turn skip your opponent, which is insanely consistent in this deck now. Is this card has the ability, when this card is summoned, you toss a coin. If heads, during your end phase, you can send 2 monsters you control to the graveyard to skip your opponent's next turn, which is absolutely insane and super cool to be able to do it in this deck, and it's very easy to actually pull off in this build to be able to instantly get your copy of the World onto your side of the field and then basically just turn skip your opponent. We then play a single copy of the Light Ruler. Light Ruler is super easy to summon off the effect of Chaos Ruler, our new extract monster, because basically when our copy of the Chaos Ruler is summoned out, you can actually instantly special summon this card out to your side of the field, which is absolutely insane. But this card has 2 interesting effects that if you get heads when this card is summoned out, when this card destroys an opponent's monster at battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can actually add 1 card from your graveyard to your hand, and if you get tails, when a spell trap or effect monster effect is activated on the field, and this card is it's activated, you get to negate the activation, destroy it, then this card loses 1,000 attack points, which is really an interesting effect, but overall, it's just insane to summon this card out because it's a 4,000 attack point monster. We then play 3 copies of Imseti. Imseti is great to be able to play in the deck, to be able to just get a Horus monster out on your side of the field, because this card can actually search out your copy of King Sarcophagus by sending this card to the graveyard and another card from your hand. You can search out King Sarcophagus and then draw a card, and you can instantly bring this card back from the graveyard to your side of the field, which is great to bring this card back to your side of the field so you can tribute it with your copy of the World, so you can basically skip your opponent's turn. We play a single copy of Happy. Happy is really good as a 1-0 in the build. The reason you play these Horus names in the deck is because it makes it so you get 2 monsters back on your side of the field every single turn for the effect of the World. So you can constantly skip your opponent's turn, which is absolutely insane to be able to do. So you basically just get the heads effect, and then once you do, you skip your opponent's turn by tributing both Horus monsters. Then on the next turn, if you need to do it again, you can just tribute your 2 Horus monsters all over again, and then skip your opponent's turn all over again, which is absolutely insane to be able to do. As long as you have King Sarcophagus on your side of the field, it's just absolutely broken. We then play a single copy of Ash Blossom, a single copy of Effect Veiler, and a single copy of Nibiru. You really just want to avoid hand traps in this deck to be able to basically just go in for your turn skip, and you want to be able to play them all at one in this deck, because we do play Crossset Designator. Make sure that we have a way to negate them, and it's really important to basically stop your opponent's hand traps so we can turn skip our opponent and go in for game. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. It's so important in this deck to be able to get to your copy of Light Barrier that we basically play 3 copies of the Fiend and a copy of Terraforming, so we can instantly get to our copy of Light Barrier, so we get to choose the effects on our copies of our Arcana Force monsters. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Call by the Grave is really good as a 1 of the build to basically just stop your opponent's hand traps where you're going in for all of your plays. We then play 2 copies of King Sarcophagus. King Sarcophagus is definitely a 2 on the build to be able to bring back your Horus monsters to your side of the field, and it's very important in this build to be able to use, because you can basically send a card from your hand to the graveyard to send a Horus monster from the deck to the graveyard, which is really important to be able to do. And as long as you control King Sarcophagus, you can bring your Horus monsters back to your side of the field, which is a great effect, so we can tribute them with the effect of the World, so we can basically turn skip our opponent. We then play 3 copies of Arcana Reading. Reading is insane because this card is basically Rhoda for the deck, with the ability that you toss a coin and apply the effect, and if Light Barrier is on the field, you can actually choose the effect instead. So if you get heads, you get to add a card from your deck to your hand that has a coin tossing effect, except another copy of this card. And if you get tails, your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, which is an effect that we never want to go off, that our opponent actually gets to add any card they want from their deck to their hand. And also you can manage this card in the graveyard, and immediately this effect resolves, you get to normal summon an Arcana Force monster to your side of the field, which is actually an insane graveyard effect, basically just instantly normal summon an additional Arcana Force to your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Arcana Spread. Arcana Spread is definitely a 3 of in the build, and just a really cool card overall, as you actually toss a coin and apply this effect, and if Light Barrier is on the field, you actually get to choose the effect instead. If you get heads, you get to special summon a level 4 Arcana Force monster from your deck, which you usually want to summon out the Hierophant to your side of the field. If you get tails, you special summon 1 monster that has a coin tossing effect from your graveyard, which is also a great effect to be able to get. So both the effects on this card is actually insane, and you manage this card in the graveyard to add a card from your graveyard to your hand that has a coin tossing effect, which is a great ability to instantly grab the exact card you need off this card's effect. We then play 3 copies of Light Force. Light Force is so good, and it has one of the best artworks in the entire game. I love that it just has such a cool artwork. This card is to be once per turn during your standby phase. If Light Barrier is not on the field, toss a coin, and if tails, the following effects of this card are negated until your next standby phase. Fairy monsters that you control gain 300 attack and defense, and you get to discard a card to add 2 Arcana Force monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest turn except Arcana Force monsters, which is not that big of a deal, especially since we usually bring out our Horus monsters to our side of the field first, and then activate this card to be able to discard a card, and then basically grab 2 Arcana Force cards, which is usually the Hierophant and the copy of the Sun from our deck to our hand, so we can basically just bring them out to our side of the field extremely easily and go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Light Barrier. So the entire deck basically revolves around getting to this card as quickly as possible, so you've got to play this card at 3. It says during your standby phase, you toss a coin, and the result is tails. The following effects of this card is negated until your next standby phase, and it has the effect that when you summon an Arcana Force monster, you get to choose the effect that's applied without tossing a coin, which is an insane ability, and if an Arcana Force monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you actually gain life points equal to destroyed monster's original attack points, which is a crazy powerful time effect to basically just gain a bunch of life points so that if you do happen to go into time with this deck, you're basically just going to win the game because you have an insane amount of life points with this deck. We then play 3 copies of Cross-Set Designator. Cross-Set Designator is really good as a 3-of in the build to basically just stop your opponent's hand traps, like Nibiru, Effect Veiler, Ash Blossom, Imperm, any of the hand traps that you see fit to play in this deck. And I really feel like it's a really important card to play in this build because you really want to be able to OTK your opponent by using your copy of the world by turn skipping and basically go in for game. And it's just a really cool card in the deck to be able to play to basically make sure that the hand traps are not going to stop your turn, and it's really important in this build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get in to the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 1, and that's going to be a single copy of Imperm. So Imperm is very important in the deck as a 1/0 to basically just counter it with your copy of Cross-Set Designator. And we do play quite a few targets for our copy of Cross-Set Designator in this build, playing our copy of Imperm, Nibiru, Effect Veiler, and our copy of Ash Blossom to basically just stop our copy of any of these hand traps with our copy of Cross-Set Designator. Which is why I just played the single copy of Imperm, because from playtesting, these were the hand traps that usually got dropped on this deck that basically just ended my turn, and I feel like these are the most important ones to stop with your copy of Cross-Set Designator, which is why I play them in the build to basically just stop them in their tracks so we don't just end our turn when we get hand trapped a couple of times. So it's very important to build, because if you can stop like 1 hand trap in this deck, you're usually just going to win the game, because it can play through at least a hand trap, which is really important, but 2 or 3 is not great for this deck. So you really want to be able to stop hand traps, which is why we just play a single copy of Imperm and the other 4 hand traps alongside Cross-Set Designator. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get in to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 3 copies of our new big boss monster, Arcana Force EX, the Chaos Ruler. This card looks absolutely insane. It reads like a custom card, and you don't even have to use polymerization to summon it. This card requires 3 Arcana Force monsters with different names, and it must be special summoned from your X deck by sending the above cards from either player's field to the graveyard, which is insane that you can actually just hand your opponent a monster with a copy of the Hierophant, and then basically just use this card instantly to bring it out to your side of the field. This card has 2 different effects when it's summoned out to your side of the field, depending on if you get heads or tails. If you get heads, you special summon a level 10 Arcana Force monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, meaning we can instantly bring out our copy of the Light Ruler to our side of the field, which is insane. Or if you get tails, you get to add a card from your deck to your hand that has a coin tossing effect. And also, this card has a really cool ability while Light Barrier is on the field zone, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters on the field, basically being a one-sided skill drain, which is absolutely crazy on a 3,300 attack point monster. This card is so cool in the deck, and once you summon out to your side of the field, you have Light Barrier on the field, you're pretty much gonna win. We then play a single copy of Baguska. Baguska is really good in the deck just in case we need to slow down the game, plus your copy of the Hierophant can easily bring out another monster at level 4, so you basically just make this card to slow down the game. We play a single copy of Dingirsu to send cards to the graveyard when it's summoned out, and make a copy of Zeus. We then play a single copy of 38 as a spell negate, which is just really good in the deck as a 1-up. Play a single copy of Typhon because it's just a great option overall to be able to make in this deck, especially if you're going second and you need it. We then play a single copy of AA Zeus. AA Zeus is really good as a 1-up, just help you board wipe the field, and it's a really good card in the deck, especially to work with your copy of Dingirsu, because the horse names will go in for Dingirsu, and then Zeus just in case you need to. Play a single copy of Underworld Goddess just in case you need to out a Towers-like boss monster. 1 copy of Access Code to pop multiple cards on the field and comes out absolutely massive. 1 copy of Selene. Selene is insane in the deck to be able to summon out to your side of the field, and it's very easy to make in this build, especially since Mseti is actually a spellcaster. And play a single copy copy of the Light Charmer, because all of your Arcana Force monsters are light, so you can step into this, bring back like an effect filler for your opponent's graveyard, then step into Selene and then Access Code. We might see a copy of SP. SP is great as a double interruption. One copy of Moon, so we can make a copy of our Underworld Goddess during the opponent's turn. And then finally, a single copy of IP, so we can either make our copy of Underworld Goddess or SP during the opponent's turn, which is absolutely insane to be able to do, so we can basically go in for game on the follow-up. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played an Arcana Force deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's absolutely crazy now that we have all this amazing support. And it's just a really cool deck overall to be able to summon out to your side of the field all your different Arcana Force monsters and then go in for game. And the coin tossing effects when you have Light Barrier on the field don't even matter. You just get to pick whichever broken effect you need. So, that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.